Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm going to try to get this part two tutorial explanation up for the turn-based movement experiments that I was doing. The last one, part one, was really long. It was like an hour and 30 something minutes, and that was all about picture-based turn-based movement. So moving pictures, and that requires you to use the pixels for the X and Y coordinates. And this time for part two, I want to focus on moving an event instead, which, from what I've experimented with, moving events seems to be easier. But there are, I guess, some kind of pros and cons. I guess you'd have to look at and see what fits your needs. So I want to focus this one on events, which means it's going to be much shorter. Um, I really do suggest that you should watch part one, only because there's a lot of concepts from part one that are going to also be seen here in the event movement, and I'm not necessarily going to explain it as much detail. So honestly, a lot of it was copy and pasted. So the more I experimented and the more I built and the more I tried to do different things, I kept copy and pasting from different earlier parts. So there's going to be a lot of copy and pasting, and so I'm not going to really go into as much detail. So, you need to go back, suffer through that hour and 30 minutes, or at least skim through it or something. So I'll give my caveats here, like I always do, in case you just found me. I am not an expert. There may be better ways to do this. There may be more efficient ways to do this. There may be plugins that do this wonderfully. All I'm doing is I'm still learning RPG Maker, MZ specifically, and I'm focusing on learning what the engine can do by default, what you can do with events, what you can do with scripts. Very few plugins. The only couple plugins I'm using right now are default plugins, and that's where I am on my journey. I'm still learning, and I'm making these videos because I'm hoping to share and give back, and hopefully people who are learning like me might search for something that they're trying to do, find a video and say, hey, wow, that's cool. This helped me learn a little bit, got me moving where I wanted to go, taught me something new. And eventually I'll get to plugins and I'll see what's going on there. But I really want to learn what I can do without the plugins, so that I have options. And then I'll pick the plugins that work the best for me, and everything else I'll do as I'm able to. Heck, I'd like to learn enough to be able to make my own plugins. And I think knowing the engine really well will facilitate that. So again, not an expert, and don't pretend to be. And that sort of thing. I also don't usually do a lot of fancy maps right now. I'm working on mechanics, how things work, how do you make things happen, how do you design things, how do you develop them, using events and scripts. This map actually has a little bit more detail to it, simply because I needed obstacles and I needed to test how to make it so that you can't move pictures where they're not supposed to go, or you can't move events where they're not supposed to go. All right, so without any further ado, I will do a very, very quick demo of just the event part. You may have seen it already, but here's the just the eventing part, or I should say moving events. So I'm going to go down here, and first, we're going to experiment with moving an event. We're going to use 8 directional arrows. So this is the event that's going to move. And so when I click here, I can basically make it move any way I want to, by the directional arrows. Okay. Once it hits 10, it says, okay, let's do something else. Now we're going to go based on speed. So you can move essentially 4 tiles before you run out of speed. Then you get to pick whether you want to reset. So you don't like where you moved to. You want to reset and start over, or you can keep it. So let's just go, let's see, 1, and you can see up here there's a counter, 2, 3, 4, and then it says, okay, do you want to keep this? Yeah, let's keep those. Let's do it again, so we can now see some things. I have 5 moves. If I try to move into read, won't let me do it, doesn't count as a move. If I try to move into the spirit here, won't let me do it, doesn't count as a move. If I try to move into the tent, it won't let me do it, doesn't count as a move. Okay, so basically this is just showing that it is uh, uh, it's doing um, the obstacles, right? The collision. It's saying, hey, you can't go in these places. So I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to highlight one thing like I did in another video. We're going to go ahead and keep that. And then, you would think you could move through here, and you can't. I guess because these two tiles are touching on corners, and the game doesn't think you can move here. So when I try to move, it says, too narrow, doesn't count as a move. But you could do this another way. You could make it go through, but then you might have unintended consequences other places. So anyway, that was kind of strange. So I'm going to go over here, and then I'll just show what happens when you do the I don't want to keep it. I want to reset. He's going to jump back over here. Boop, just jump back over and let you retry again. Okay, so that's pretty much. We're going to keep that. Then we're not going to move again, and that's the end of the eventing. So again, this was a lot of this was copied from the picture-based movement stuff that I did. So first I have my little vent here. It doesn't do anything. It's named, so I know what it does. It's got a picture. I used walking just because I wanted to. It's below characters and it's an action button. So really, I'm just using it just for testing purposes. I'm going to move this event around. And this event is sitting at 310. So an X of 3 and a Y of 10. And we're basically going to be using tile coordinates, not pixels. So what's going on here? So I clicked on this first. This event has 5 pages. Again, just because I was experimenting with a bunch of stuff, trying to see, what works and how to make things happen. So on page 1, I just have my sign that I'm going to click on, and it's same as characters action button. Now, what is it doing when I click on it? When I click on it, first thing it does is it freezes the player, right? That set movement route for player. There's no actual moves, and it repeats. So it just freezes the player sprite in place. Show text. Let's experiment. Here's some more text. It tells us what's coming up. The 8 directional arrows. I can move 10 times. So this variable was previously made in when I was doing picture based. So the variable movement count, I'm setting it to 0 because we used it before when I was doing other stuff, but now I'm going to use it again, so I'm setting it to 0. The event, this boy, I created a variable boy speed, and I'm setting it to a random number from 4 to 6 because again, as I play through this, I want to just test the different values that could appear, and making sure that everything works properly. Then I'm taking 2 variables, boy start X and boy start Y, and just like with the picture movement, the event movement, we're focusing on the X and Y coordinates. So the X axis and the Y axis. And basically what we're doing is we're adding and subtracting from it when we move our event around. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish where is this event starting. So boy start X and boy start Y is the game data, map X of this event, map Y of this event. So when we're here, we have our variable, we go to game data, and part of the game data under character is you can choose the player or the event you're in or any of the events on the map. And then you can, whatever you pick, you can choose the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, the direction that it's facing, if that's applicable. And then you also have screen X and screen Y, which I've used also before earlier. So not in this one, but in another tutorial. So we are, first of all, we're setting the events X and Y coordinates at the start because we're going to need those if you decide to discard your movement. You need to be able to go back to where you started. So that's what this is doing. Then it's going to turn on control switch A, control self switch A, which essentially advances the page. So when we go to page 2, self switch A is on, which makes this the highest page where the conditions are met. It's still same as character, but now it's parallel. So it's going to start running the contents of this immediately when this switch gets turned on. What is page 2 doing? Well, page 2 is doing something very, very similar that I showed in part one under picture movement. It's setting up our arrows at the lower right hand of the screen. So we're using the show picture command to show each of the arrows. So picture 10, is the arrow up, right? And then I just had to mess around, and I actually did this earlier in the picture base. So what I did was copy and paste this. But in order to get it, I had to mess around with the pixels, figure out where I wanted them, where did they look good, what was the width and height of the actual image, right? So in reality, I copied and pasted this all the way down to here from the picture movement events, right? This I had done before. The only thing I changed, whoops, the only thing I changed was that I had to change the common events because when I previously did it, I used a set of common events for up, down, left, right, diagonals. And this one is doing something different, so you can't reuse those common events. So I basically copied and pasted all this from the previous picture movement stuff, and I simply changed I don't even think I changed the picture number. I think I reused the picture numbers. Um, and then I changed the common events that they're calling because I had to write new common events, which are also a lot of copy and paste. So up arrow, down arrow, left, right, upper left, upper right, down left, down right. And all of them are showing the picture. Then they're using the plugin command button picture, right? It's a plugin where you identify a picture and then you identify the common event that you want it to call when you click on that picture. That's what this plugin is doing. It's making a picture clickable. So I show picture 10, and then this makes picture 10 clickable to send me to common event 103. And then the same thing for the rest of these. 11, picture 11, common event 104, 12, 12, 105. So I set my arrows. Then I'm going to have an immediate check. If movement count is equal to 10, because back here on this page I said you could move them 10 times. So we have to start checking right away. If the movement count is 10, then you got to do something. And what are you going to do? Well, we're going to take the control variable boy speed and we're going to reset it to a random thing. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to say another variable, boy remaining moves, and we're going to set it to the boy's speed because we're going to use this to tick down on the screen that, your moves are going away as you move. Okay. So then, because here, at this point in time, um, well, anyway, just trust me, it's there for a reason. Okay, it was back here, right? It was back here, um, but I ran into a problem, so I put it again here. Maybe that wasn't necessary. I don't know, but I haven't deleted it to try it. But regardless, we're setting his speed here because here you don't know what the speed is yet, right? You don't know what the speed is yet. We haven't shown it to you. Yeah, that's correct. And then so here I'm just resetting it. Again, anyway, I didn't mess around with removing one of them, or I think I did, and something went wrong, and I didn't go back to figure out what went wrong. So anyway, there's two of them. And then this one is important because we're going to use this to show the movement going down or the number of moves left going down. So then we have our show text, right? Let's try something different. Here's the boy's speed, which is this variable 466. So /v in brackets 466. That's allowing you to show the value of that variable in text. And this tells you can use that many tiles. And then here it's telling you what's going to happen afterwards, right? So we've got that part. It's all working good. And then down here we're going to take the variable boy start x and boy start y, and we're going to set it to the event starting x and the event starting y. So we want to we back here, right? Let's see, was it back here? So we set the boy start X to the actual map locations, right? And then here we are setting the boy start X and boy start Y to event start Y and event starting X and Y. And you're going to see though, we're only in here because we've already clicked and moved, right? So remember that when we come to this page and we start doing this, this is setting up my clickable arrows, but you don't get inside here until you've moved 10 times. So some of this stuff is being reset or changed because of what's happening in the common events when you move. So we'll get there, okay? We'll get there. But for right now, once we're here, we've moved 10 times. We're going to set the boys start X and Y coordinates to the event starting X and Y coordinates. We're gonna reset the movement count to 0 because we're gonna use that variable again, and we're gonna turn self switch B on, which is going to advance the page. But that's only if movement count is equal to 10 now. If it's not, it's going to wait 10 frames, which is 1/60th of a second, so 1/6 of a second, and then it's going to go back up here and start running again. So basically, this runs in parallel, and it's just waiting for you to click on the arrows to call the common events. You go to the common event, you come back from the common event, and it keeps flowing through. All right. So when the movement count is equal to 10, it's going to advance to the next page by turning self switch B on, which goes to this page, self switch B. Now this is the highest page where all the conditions are met. And again, same as character, still parallel, so it starts to run immediately when we switch here. What's this one doing? Well, the first thing this does is this is the same as from the previous part 1 tutorial. It's setting on the screen the text boy moves remaining and the value of the variable 469, which is this right here, boy remaining moves 469. So it's going to take that text, it's going to use a plugin, okay, text picture plugin. I've highlighted this before. I highlighted it in part 1. You tell it the text you want to appear on the screen. We're using the variable so that we can continuously show this as it changes. And then in order to do this, you have to take a blank picture and you tell it where to show up on the screen. This is actually copied and pasted from a previous portion of the events for picture movement. Then this is all the same. All of this is essentially the same as it was in page 2. So essentially what I did was after I made page 2, I copied the event page, right, and pasted it into page 3, and then I just modified it, right? This was all the same. I added this at the beginning. So now this is drawing our arrows, again, making the arrows clickable. Down here, because again, this is running in parallel, it's just going to keep going through it over and over again. It's going to immediately check if the movement count is equal to the boy's speed. Because again, as we click on things and they call common events and stuff, we're going to try to track how many times this event is moved. So it's checking right here if the movement count is equal to the boy's speed, whatever that random number was, then I'm going to show you the text, hey, the boy's out of move. Do you want to keep these or reset them? And then you get to show choices, keep or reset. This is not identical to earlier in the picture-based. It's the same concept, but it's not really a cut and paste job. When you say you want to keep it, this is going to turn on Control Self Switch C. Okay, turn on Control Self Switch C, which is going to advance the page again. When you want to reset it, okay, what it's going to do is it's going to use the event command set event location, and it's going to basically move the event that we were moving around, the boy, back to the starting position of X and Y based on the variables, based on the values that we saved in those variables. Whoops, didn't want to do that. So here's our set event location. You get to pick, right? Which event do you want to set? We want to set the event movement test. That's the boy that we've been moving around, and you can set it by direct designation on the map to a point on the map, or you can use variables, which is what we're going to do. We're going to use the starting x and starting y values, or you can actually swap it with another event. And I have tutorials that use the swap event, and you can retain or you can change the direction of the sprite. Okay, so set event location. And where is that? So let's see, where is set event location? It is page 2, right here, set event location. So if you want to reset, it's going to set the event location, which means basically it's going to move the event from where it currently is back to the values that we saved for the starting X and starting Y. It's going to change the move count back to 0 because we're going to start counting again. And then it's going to set the boy remaining moves to the boy's speed. So again, we were ticking down, we were taking away moves. Now we're going to reset it to the speed so we can start all over again. And once you reset this, it's going to wait 10 frames, and then it's going to go right back up to the top, and it's going to wait. It's not waiting, it's cycling through, and it's allowing you to click the arrows again. Okay? So that's all this page is doing until you say, hey, the movement count's done, and I want to keep the moves that I did. So then it turns on self switch C. Well, what's self switch C? That moves us to this page. Okay, moves us to this page. We'll go back to the arrows in just a minute with the common events. So self switch C here is on this page, highest page where the conditions are met, still parallel. So this immediately starts running. Ask a question. Do you want to try moving the boy again? Yes or no? Show choices. When yes, it's going to change the movement count to 0. It's going to reset the boy's speed to a random number. It's going to reset the boy remaining moves to the speed so that we can, again, tick it down, count it down. And then it's going to set the boy starting X and Y coordinates to the map X and Y of the event. So we can, again, keep track of where the event starts so that if we decide to reset, we'll be able to jump back there. It tells you what the boy speed is, so you know. Then it turns self switch C off. It turns this off, which makes it go back to this page. Okay? Or if you click no, then it says, okay, this concludes our test. We're done. We're going to use this script, which I've highlighted before, to clear all the pictures off the screen. $game, capital screen, dot clear, capital pictures in parentheses, or empty parentheses. That clears all the pictures. If you didn't want to clear all the pictures, you'd have to erase the pictures one at a time. Set movement route for the player, that's setting the player free. So we're not repeating it anymore. We're setting them free. The player can move around again. And then we're turning on self switch D. Self switch D advances the page to here, and there's nothing, and it's no longer parallel. So you're turning off the parallel process. It's done. However, if you said that I want to do it again, and we reset all these things, it turns off self switch C, which essentially makes this the page, the highest page where the conditions are met, because self switch B is still on. And that brings us back here where the arrows are on the screen. They're clickable. It tells me how many moves the boy has left. And then I have my options again, right? So it basically returns me back here to go through this whole thing again. Okay? So that's what all these pages are doing. But when you click the arrows, what's different about the common events? So we go here, go back to common events. And here were my common events from the picture-based movement. Here's the common event from the event movement. It is very, very, very similar. So if you know how to make these, and you saw how we were checking to see if it was going to collide with anything, then it's going to be very similar to this. So the first direction movement, up. What are we going to do? Once we make one of these, it's copy and pasting and just changing a few values. So first thing, moving up, we're going to take the player position X and set it to the map X of the player position Y variable, set it to the map Y of the player. And that's the same, that's that game data, right? That's that game data again. And then we're going to set the spirit location X and the spirit location Y to the map X and Y of that event. That event is called movement start, and that's the spirit on the map. I highlighted this in the previous tutorial. Then we're going to take the variable event starting X and event starting Y, and we're going to set them to the map X and map Y of the event. That's the boy event movement test. That's the boy. We're setting it to the X and Y values. Okay. Again, all these are the game data in the variable area, right? All of these are the game data area. Then we have to, just like in the previous tutorial where we were trying to figure out what's our destination coordinates, we're going to have the event destination X and the event's destination Y variables, and we're setting them to the event starting X because that's where we are. And if we're moving up, the X coordinate is not changing, right? The X axis is not changing. If you're moving up, right, X is for moving left and right, and Y is for moving up and down. So if we're moving up, we're not changing X. The event destination Y variable is being set to the variable 462, which is the event starting Y, right? That's where we are, minus 1. So we're doing math here, and that's why we're using the script. So we have our variable for event destination Y, where do we want it to move to? The script, $game capital variables dot value in parentheses the number of the variable 462 minus 1. Now, yes, you could do these as separate, just, event destination Y is set to event starting Y, and then event destination Y minus 1. You could do that. You could do two different rows for that. But this, you can combine them together and do multiple steps of math and only have it doing it once. So this is how we start. Get all these coordinates down. Then we figure out where our destination is. And we're using only one now instead of those big numbers for pixels because, again, with events, you're moving it based on tiles. So this tile here is 0, 0. This tile here is 0, 1, 0, 2. This is 1, 0. This is 1, 1, right? So that's why we're only subtracting 1 or adding 1 instead of these large numbers for like pixels. Okay? So let's see. Then after we do this, this is not necessary if you don't want it. But what I wanted was, depending on how you're moving the sprite, I wanted them to turn in that direction. And then if they can't move, they turn back. So this is setting movement route. All it's doing is it's turning up. Okay. So you're setting the movement route of the event that we're moving, turn up, and that's all, right? It's all. It's just going to turn the sprite up. And then it's going to go through some of its checks. First check I did was the region ID. And I explained this thoroughly in the last tutorial. So we're going to get location information. We're going to, we're taking a variable, and we're using the region ID. That's the map, right? The 2's on the map. And we're going to use the designation with variables. So we're using the destination X and Y. And once we get that information, right? Once we get that information, we're getting the region ID of the destination X and Y location. And then we're going to do a conditional check. If event region ID is equal to 2, those 2's were places I wasn't supposed to move to, then it's going to send me a message. Boy can't move to that tile. And then it's going to set the movement route to turn back down, right, from where it was. So it turned up. Now it's going to turn back down. And then we're going to exit. And when we exit, it exits this common event, but you're back into the parallel event that's running, waiting for you to click another arrow. So that's the first obstacle type check it checks. Then it does, this is blatantly from the previous part one with the picture movement. If your event destination X variable is equal to the spirit location X, and if your event destination Y variable is, I shouldn't say equal to, is, well, no, I'm sorry, it is equal to spirit location Y, then that means you're trying to move to the same spot that this spirit location event is. And you can't do that. So it says you can't move that. And then it sets your movement to down, just like it did up here to move you. You turned up, now you're turning down. And then it exit event processing, right? And then it does its third check, just like in the previous part one tutorial. It's going to check if event destination X is equal to player position X, and if event destination Y is equal to player position Y, you're trying to move to the same tile as the player. You can't do that. So, nope, can't do that. Turn back down, exit the event processing. Go back to the parallel event, pick a different arrow. If none of those are true, so if the region ID isn't blocking you, if the spirit isn't blocking you, if the player isn't blocking you, then we're going to actually move the event now. So we're going to set movement route. We're going to set it to the event. And we are skipping the move if we can't move, and we're waiting for completion. I added these. I added them in and out, in and out, in and out while I was testing, and I finally defaulted to these both need to be on. And primarily they need to be on for that one little spot where it looks like you could move diagonally and you can't. and that's basically what these are for. And the movement is you move up because that's what you picked, event up, move up, and then you turn back down to face the way you were. And that's your movement. Now, once the event moves, then we're going to reset our variables. Event starting X is now going to be the map X of the event and the map Y of the event, because that's the new starting position. Then we're going to check a conditional again. And what are we checking? If event starting X is equal to event destination X, and if event starting Y is equal to event destination Y, that means you didn't move. Okay, you didn't move anywhere. And so what? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. You did move. You did move. And again, this is that whole diagonal. You can't move through the diagonal space like you should be able to, or you think you can. And it was causing problems. So it's checking here to say your event starting position, is it the same as what your destination was? If that's true, then that means you actually moved. The event actually moved. So we're going to increase the movement count variable by 1, and we're going to decrease the boy's remaining move variable by 1. So now the thing on the screen that says how many moves you have left is going to go down, and the movement count is going up so we can see how many times we've moved. This is if they're not equal, meaning that you didn't actually move. The event tried to move because you clicked a arrow, but it wasn't allowed to move in that direction. And essentially what was happening was when originally I didn't have this in here, and so I would try to move diagonally through this space. And what would happen is the character would stay where they were, and it would count as a move. It would take away from my move count, but I couldn't move, and nothing was being communicated to the player. So I tried to fix that. So I fixed it by saying, hey, let's communicate to the player that you can't move that direction, and let's make it so it doesn't count against you as a move. But then I ran into the problem where what I was just saying was, if you don't, if basically it was getting stuck. If you didn't set this to skip if you can't move, then the event would try to move, it couldn't move, and so it would just sit there. It would be stuck because I had wait for completion on, right? So that was messing things up. And again, so after trial and trial and trial, I ended up setting these two, and it works. So you can experiment all you want, but I needed these to be on for it to work the way I wanted. So again, this is checking, did you actually move? If you did, then we're going to increase your move count and we're going to decrease your remaining moves. If you didn't move, then we're going to show you that text. This space is too narrow for the boy to fit through. We are not going to decrease your movement count. We're not going to increase your movement count. We're not going to decrease your remaining moves. And instead, we're going to drop down here. We're going to reset the region ID to 0, so it's ready to be reused again. And then we're exiting. We're exiting the event, going back to the parallel event that's waiting for you to click on the arrows. Okay? So that's the complete event for moving up. And what you're going to find is that all of these are very, 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 very similar. So I copied and pasted, and then I just changed the values that I needed. So let's look at this again really quickly so we can see what values actually changed. Player X and Y set to their map locations. Spirit X and Y set to their map location. Event starting position X and Y set to the event map location. The destination X and Y, this has got to change. This is where my starting X and then my math, right? My math for my Y position is changing. Then we're turning up. Then we're checking the region ID. We're going to get the region ID of the destination. If it's 2, then we're going to tell you can't move there. We're going to turn back down and we're going to exit. Then, if that's not true, we're going to check and say, is your destination the same tile space as the spirit? If so, then you can't move there. We're going to turn back down. We're going to exit. Then if your destination X and Y are the same as the player X and Y, well, you can't move on top of the player. So no, can't move there. Turn back down, exit. If none of those are true, we're going to set the movement route. Okay, we're going to skip and wait. These have to change based on what you clicked. So we're going to move up and then turn back down. Then we're going to reset our event starting position because we have a new position, right? Because we moved. So we set it to the X and Y of the event. Then we check and say, did we actually move? So is the event starting X the same as the destination X and Y? If that's true, we're going to increase our movement count and we're going to decrease our remaining moves. If it wasn't the same, so we didn't actually move, the event didn't actually move, then we're going to communicate that. In that one instance that I found, they couldn't move through that opening. And then we're not changing anything. We're not changing these things if they didn't move. And then we're going to reset that region ID to 0. Okay, so now let's see, what about when we move down? Well, this, that's all the same. This stays the same because the X isn't moving. But now the Y, you're adding 1 instead of subtracting 1. So that's the only thing that's changed so far. This and this are all the same. This is all the same. This is all the same. Now this is going to be different because instead of moving up, you're moving down. These are going to be the same. This is going to be the same. This is going to be the same. And this is going to be the same. So you only changed just a couple things, and you now have your common event for moving down. And when you want to move left, let's see, this changed because you're moving left. That means the X has to change. You're moving left, so X is being subtracted by 1, but your Y is now not changing. You're staying on the same Y axis. This has to change because you're turning left to make it look like you're going to move left. And then all of this is the same. All of this is the same. All of this is the same. This, of course, is different because you've got to actually move left because that's what you picked. But then all the rest of this is the same. And event right is the same way. This is changing by adding 1. The Y is not changing. This is turning right, so this is changing. These are the same. These are the same. These are the same. And then, of course, this changes because this actually moves the event. So we're moving right now. And then all the rest of this is the same. So again, copy and pasting, copy and pasting, copy and pasting. Event upper left, All of this stays the same, except you got to make sure you're changing your X and your Y variables, right? Because if you're moving up, your Y is decreasing by 1. If you're moving left, X is decreasing by 1. And then, of course, let's see, this is the same as moving up. These are the same. These are the same, right? All these are the same. Of course, this is different because of what you're moving, and then the rest is the same. So again, very, very few changes. When you move up and right, you have to make sure that you change your X and Y appropriately for which direction you're moving. And then same thing down here. Make sure you're changing the actual where you're moving, which direction you're moving in, right? And you just change these values over here. And you notice you can move diagonally, up or right. That allows you to move diagonally. Down and left, make sure you change your X and Y appropriately, right, based on how you're moving. And then, of course, make sure you're moving in the right direction. And then last but not least, down right, make sure you change your X and your Y the way they're supposed to be. And then make sure you change your movement the way it's supposed to be. And that's pretty much it. So those are the different directions, the 8 directions that you can move in. So once you write one common event and you get this all down, it's just copying, pasting, and just changing very small values. So those are all your common events. And we went through all of these pages, right? We started here, turned its own self switch A on. Then we got all of our arrows on the screen that we can click. And we checked, what do we do once the movement count hits 10, right? What do we do here? And then, we turn our self switch B on. And then again, all these are, so this was not parallel, but this is parallel, this is parallel, this is parallel, this is not. So we're up to here, and we're on a new page, parallel. We've got our text showing how many moves the boy has. We've got all our arrows, which were copied and pasted from page 2. We've got our check to see if the movement count is equal to his speed. And then what do we do? Do we want to reset or keep? And if we keep, we're advancing to the next page. If we reset, we're changing all our values. We're going to move the event back to its starting position, reset our values so that we can keep going, right, on the same page. If we say we're going to keep them, then we move to the next page. And again, parallel, checking to see if you want to do it again. And if you do, then we're going to reset this to get ready to go. And then we're going to turn off self switch C so we can go back to this page. Or if we're all done, then we clear the pictures, we set the player free, and we move self switch D. We move to a page that is not parallel. It's not doing anything. If we do yes here, we turn off self switch C, puts us back here, and then all the contents of this page run again, right? Until we get down, till the movement count's done, and then we ask ourselves the same question. And that's it. And this, of course, is just a sprite set to walking, nothing else. It's not through. The sprite isn't really doing it. This event isn't doing anything the way the testing goes. Okay. So that's it for the events. So I actually think this is easier than picture movement, but there are some differences, and you might have a preference one way or the other based on what you're doing. And one might be easier for what you're trying to do versus the other. So anyway, I hope this is helpful, folks. Again, this is part 2, all about moving the events. If something wasn't completely clear here, you might want to go back to part 1, see the more detailed explanation for moving the pictures. And anyway, as I've said, I hope this is helpful. I'm doing these to try to help people who might be searching for different things and trying to find solutions and trying to learn how to do things through events and a little bit of scripts. I will try to get some more stuff up when I'm able to, as I have time. If these videos are helpful to you, or if you appreciate the effort that's put in, please consider liking, subscribing, leaving comments, getting notifications. If you do have questions, leave a comment. If you have suggestions, leave a comment. If this is something that's going to help you, or if you're able to build things, or if this gives you ideas, leave a comment. I love to see the comments that come in. And other than that, folks, I hope you have a great day. And in the meantime, before I can get more stuff up, happy gaming, happy game developing, and I will talk to everybody later. Bye.